Welcome to Flying for Flavor. I'm your host, Stephanie Pichet. I am alone editing again today. I wanted to give you a few updates before this week's episode that I taped with Stacy again just a couple of weeks ago. I was planning to get on a plane to go to Halifax, and I'm booking flights for other things, and she just came back from a trip not that long ago. So we decided it was a great opportunity while things were fresh in our brain to tape what was on our mind with the travel and airports and everything else. So there'll be some great information coming to you over the next couple of weeks. But I think we need to do a couple things first. So let's start with a beverage recommendation. I am becoming a very big fan of Shock Top. So it's a Belgian white beer, for those of you who are not familiar with it. It's been around for a couple of years now. I remember my son used to order it. We were out, and it always came with a nice little orange slice. And I am becoming more and more of a beer fan over the last year or two. But one of those things I'm still experimenting, figuring out what kind of styles I like, testing out different craft brews, some local, some international, kind of playing around with different flavors and styles so I can get an idea of what I like, just like you would with wine. But the Shock Top has a kind of like a mixed can little kit that you can grab for the summer. I picked one up actually a couple of weeks ago. It not only has the classic Shock Top Belgian white in it, but it also has one with grapefruit and another one with lemon citrus. So not quite a radler, meaning that it has a lot of juice in it, but just enough to give it that flavor. So they're kind of refreshing. They're still a little tart. It's like halfway between a standard beer flavor and the new sours that I'm loving right now. But I like the idea that I can just grab, a box of 12. It comes assorted 3 different kinds. I have them in my fridge ready to go, and then I'm ready for guests, depending on what flavor they're feeling like that day. So I'll put a link in the show notes for them so that you can find them at your LCBO, but of course they'll be available at the beer store as well. I'm not sure if I'll be able to find a link on that. Well, I've never actually included a link for the beer store before, so this is a first. So I will do my best to give you whatever information I can get my hands on. Okay, industry updates. By this time, you may have seen a lot of news about Starbucks in the US, of course, had their big closing day on May 29th, just to make sure that they had company-wide industry training on bias that may be coming out in their day-to-day interaction with customers. So this, of course, is in retaliation to that, or in defense of that scandal that happened last month with 2 African-American gentlemen who were actually arrested for sitting too long without buying anything in their store. And of course, the president and CEO was appalled and embarrassed. And so they implemented this industry bias training day on May 29th. So actually, for the first time that I can ever hear of, Starbucks locations across the US were closed for May 29th. Now, the interesting thing is Canada is now following suit. So on June 11th, for part of the afternoon only, so not for a full afternoon, but all the Canadian company-operated stores and offices next month are also going to receive the same training about creating, quote, a culture of warmth and belonging. So it's been one of those things that, of course, there's probably been some critiques that the Canadian side of Starbucks was not following suit with the US plans. So this is going to be something that's going to show up. They'll probably have signs and notifications in your local Starbucks location just about the exact times that they will be closed that day for training. So I think that's a positive step going forward, and I'm excited to see if there's any ongoing changes to how Starbucks employees and customers kind of interact with each other and how the company promotes itself going forward. So stay tuned. I will update you as I hear it. The other thing that I found that was really cool, everyone remembers Virgin Airlines. So of course, their very well-known owner, Richard Branson, was actually closing the airlines. Kind of like did his thing, impressed everybody, and now he's got an itch, so he's doing something else. And now he's doing cruises. So I can't wait to chat with Stacy next time she's in to see what she thinks of this. So the Virgin company is actually creating a new cruise line called Virgin Voyages. And he's been sending out these little teasers about what these vessels are going to be like. First of all, it's going to be an adults-only cruise line. Very cool. So, of course, it's going to cater to the adult crowds. There's not going to be any of those like water slides and kiddie things and merry-go-rounds and daycares and all that kind of thing on it. But instead, they're going to have room now for things like rooftop terraces, a dual level Art Deco nightclub, and a catamaran net, which is actually going to hang off the back of the end of the ship, which I thought was pretty cool. And then, of course, the on-ship entertainment can be a little bit more adult oriented as opposed to family friendly. They're going to call passengers sailors as opposed to the classic name. And there's going to be restaurants like Pink Agave. There's going to be an upscale modern Mexican restaurant. There's going to be this cool thing called a test kitchen that's going to be very scientific in nature with beakers and test tubes and flasks on the table and that kind of stuff. They're even planning to incorporate the largest daybed at sea. So I haven't seen photos of it, but it sounds interesting, as well as a full workout space with jogging track and everything. So they're going to launch 3 ships, each with 2,700 passengers, and they're expected to start sailing in 2020. So if you have a favorite travel agent, maybe you can kind of put their bug in their ear and get them to find information for you, especially if you're a big cruise aficionado. They're putting a lot of money into these boats. Production costs right now are currently estimated to be about $2 billion. And one last bit of industry news. It kind of gets muffled with all of the other updates about the U.S. administration these days. But there has been a new tariff that's being, I don't know if it's actually going to go through, but there's been an announcement on it with a steel and aluminum tariff that the U.S. is charging Canadian businesses and customers. So the Canadian government decided that they're not fooling around with this, and to protect Canadian businesses, they are also retaliating with their own sets of tariffs. So it's not even going to be just steel and aluminum that they're firing back at the U.S., but they have an entire list of other products that they are going to start adding in additional tariffs for products being imported from the U.S. And a lot of them are food. So I'm going to include the link on the show notes as well so that you can kind of browse through that list of food products. It is going to mean that groceries are going to get more expensive. There's even beauty products on there, things like aluminum foil. There's a lot of things that use aluminum and steel that you may not think of, including beer kegs, all kinds of stuff. So take a look at the very long list that's going to be in the attached show notes if you want to take a quick browse through. And my solution for that is to keep an eye on what products you're purchasing, where they are made, and if everything being equal, it's always better to shop local. So I just got off a plane not that long ago, so let's hear what Stacy had to say about her ideas for killing time when that flight delay happens. I don't understand why airports, when they're doing all their renovations, have not added outlets in every single corner. How's that to start the episode?
That is perfect. It's so true.
Everyone needs to charge something. Most people carry a charger with them of some sort, especially with an AC adapter. Mm-hmm. So I understand that if they have specific charging stations, especially at international airports, where you just need a USB, and they probably have stations here and there. Mm-hmm. But most people have their own, especially if they're traveling, they have their own adapters, have their own cords. And honest to God, like I've almost eyed the vacuum. Like I see the lady vacuuming and I'm following her cord to find out where her vacuum's plugged in.
It's the easy way.
I'm looking for something to buy. I'm sorry. I've been in restaurants. Like we've sat at a restaurant once, and I always ask the staff first, right? Mm-hmm. Again, we're killing time in the morning before a flight. And I'll talk to one of the servers and I'll say, because the only outlet that I can find happens to be near where we're sitting, but there's like a power bar with 4 other things plugged in.
Right.
So as opposed to me just assuming that it's okay for me to plug my charger in to boot my MacBook or whatever, mm-hmm. I usually will ask if it's all right. Mm-hmm. Because this way, if I blow a circuit,
they know.
At least somebody gave me permission and told me it was okay to do that, as opposed to me just arbitrarily deciding that nobody needs this lamp, so I'm going to unplug it. Yeah. So power is a big thing, and that's if I did not have sufficient power, traveling and hanging out in airports, especially in between flights, I think would be, I'd be pulling my hair out. Mm-hmm. I think because you're always looking at that bar.
Yes. Going, oh, I
At
wonder
the
how
top of your
long
phone,
it's
I
going
wonder.
to last.
It's like the fuel tank in your car.
I
Right?
know,
I wonder,
it's like-
I wonder how much longer I could coast this thing.
I can't see you being a person that would be able to be technologically free for a vacation.
No,
You would.
no, that's not me.
No.
That's what I said. That was discussed in the previous
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm not because I am always on social media and
Mhm.
writing, and everything that my business does now revolves around things that are online.
Absolutely.
So for me not to have access to, anyways, you can listen to the other episode to listen to how I plan my day to sort of give myself a bit of a break here and there. But
Absolutely.
in an airport, I find that I'm a little bit more tied to my devices than anything else because I'm not a shopper.
No.
So
Neither
a lot
am
of
I.
times I'm browsing to kill time.
Mhm.
So I don't mind when I'm in a different country store and I'll go looking around for souvenirs or things that I didn't get on my trip that week, like on the way home. A lot of times duty-free stuff
Mhm.
is cheaper, or I get it in the duty-free as opposed to me buying it in town or at the hotel or something.
Absolutely.
I'm not a shopper. You'll never find me at any kind of gambling type thing. That's not me either.
Yeah.
And as much as I love eating, if it's only a food court in that airport, you're not going to see me hanging out there eating Burger King. Sorry. Not knocking Burger King by all means, but it's just that's not me. Or I haven't ate nothing but tacos all week. I do not want to go to another taco stand in the airport before I leave.
Exactly.
Right?
Totally get it.
So how do you? Sorry, here I'm gulping down my lemon shandy. So how do you kill time in the airport? So I live on my devices.
I mean, I find I am similar to you in the sense that I tend to, when I'm wasting time, feeling like I have to fill my time, I tend to lean on my devices. I'll read from my device, or I'll, Google, add the photos that we were talking about, get stuff updated that way. But I also find that it's a time too where you can go for a walk around the terminal. I'm not a shopper in an airport at all. I'm refused to shop at an airport unless there's something really interesting. I mean,
Like lobster in Halifax?
oh yeah, lobster in Halifax I would do. I'm
right?
all in.
Because it's a fresh, it's something
it's a
unique
bucket
that you
list
just
thing.
get at the that you get at the airport
Yeah.
to take home. But
Exactly.
yeah,
But
as
yeah.
opposed to a lobster bib.
Yep.
Again, not knocking lobster bibs, but you can get a lobster bib anywhere in Halifax.
But not the lobsters. What else can we do? There's lounges. I find I tend to spend on lounges because you can have a shower, you can have all your food, all your drinks.
Some lounges are better than others.
Oh,
I have to admit.
absolutely.
I'm not going to knock a particular airport. However, I find that there's one lounge at the certain airport that I go to quite often that we've gone up there and we kind of sit down and we look around because we had it included in our package or whatever. We look around and we're checking out the food and we're checking out the wines and we're like, oh my God, there's better stuff down in the main area. I would rather pay a little bit extra. There was just no motivation for me to be in the airport or to be in that lounge aside from eating and drinking my fill, which was not what I wanted to do.
No.
There was no other little particular facilities or things that would provide some luxury or some entertainment or anything up there. So I kind of felt like if I'm just going to drink free wine and eat food, it was okay. But I get better selections, everything else, if I just go to the standard airport and then go and pick and choose where I want to go.
Exactly. Yep. Granted. I mean, if it's included, definitely. If it's not, then it's an issue of why you're using it. Are you using it for a shower? Do they even have a shower? Do they have, it has to be one of those situations where.
And I think people realize that a lot of times, as much as you may not have access to the lounge because you don't have business class or whatever else, we've done that quite often, even in economy class, where we'll go to a particular lounge for the airline and they always have a price.
Oh, yes, they always do.
Yes, there's always a price that if somebody wants to pay $50 person or whatever to come into the lounge, by all means. So we've done that on a couple of occasions where the lounge is the only place that has half decent Wi-Fi.
Right.
And we know we have a 5-hour layover, but sometimes when we've been booking our flights, we find out about you can add the lounge on right at the time of the booking.
Yes.
So we'll do that, especially if we know we're going to have that layover time.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have enough time to leave the airport, but we're going to be killing some time. So we usually plan, okay, that's going to be our work time.
Mm-hmm.
And then we happen to know certain countries are better than others when it comes to their Wi-Fi access. So we know it's going to have a dedicated Wi-Fi just for that lounge area and that kind of thing. And we can basically park our butts.
Mm-hmm.
We can nibble when we want. We can do work when we want. If we want to lounge on a sofa for a while, we can do that. It just gives us a little bit more flexibility. Kind of like being at home.
Exactly. There's more of a home feel in a lounge than there is in just the regular concourse area.
And some of the lounges are getting crazy. I just researched because I was interested in I think it's LAX. They're creating an entire different, it's a special company that I think that's in with LA and within LAX, and you pay, it's a membership. So you can either pay for 6 months or a year or annual fees or whatever else. And essentially allows you access to, you not only have a private lounge with a VIP, it's like a hotel room. You get picked up when you get to the airport. You're picked up in a limousine, taken directly to this one particular place. Someone else takes care of your security, luggage, checking in, does everything for you. And then they will even take you across the tarmac. You don't have to go through, stand in the line to get on the flight like all the rest of the, the standard passengers.
Right.
You're like a celebrity in the tarmac in a limo going directly to the flights. Like it's a really cool atmosphere. And I was mesmerized at it, and prices were crazy, of course. But if you're constantly traveling and doing business travel,
might be reasonable.
That's one of those things that every time that they upgrade something at an airport, there's always somebody who wants more than. So they're constantly having to update. And I think that's one of the reasons that they have things like massage available, manicures, right? You have quick manicures in between. There's a few airports that are now interesting. You said those like napping pod type things.
Yes.
You haven't done one?
No, I don't know why yet, but it's not there yet.
I don't know if I could. I would really have to be tired.
It would have to be a long layover, and it would have to be from being up for hours upon hours to be able to make me sleep while I'm in an airport. I don't know why. Yeah,
I think for me it would be the one eye, like, am I going to sleep through this?
Yeah, am I going to miss my flight?
Yeah, is it going to be like on a plane where the flight attendant's going to shake my shoulder and tell me it's time to go?
Go now. Wake up.
Right?
Done that before.
Lights are on, seats go up. It's time to go.
Lights in the cabin have changed from blue to pink to black to yellow all the way through.
One of the things that I love, it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes we've had, it's usually the bright spots in those travel arrangements where we had an unexpected delay. And as much as you can be frustrated about it, if you have longer than a 5 or 6 hour and your airport happens to be close enough to civilization, it's a great opportunity to get off the property and go out and explore it a little bit.
Absolutely.
Even if it's just finding a cool restaurant or someplace that's not in the airport and taking the time. I mean, Norm and I got stuck at the Toronto Island Airport once, where our flight, arrived in the morning from the States. Our flight was supposed to be at noon. It was now being pumped to 5:30.
Right.
So at first we were like, oh, seriously, it's a Sunday. Like, we're going to get home late. But then we said, okay, well, if we had to hang out here, that might be torturous, because Toronto Island Airport, there's not a whole lot, right?
No, not at all.
However, we decided, okay, well, let's take off then, because they already had our bags, right? Our checked bags were already checked through, of course. So we didn't have to lug around the big suitcases. But we ended up just taking a taxi, which is a 5-minute taxi ride. We managed to find a place that was close to the airport. We had a Sunday brunch out on a patio.
Beautiful.
It's just something that you'd never necessarily do at an airport. Right? So we kind of stretched it out for a bit and then took our time getting back to the airport again.
And just run through security again for your carry-on stuff, right?
Yeah, it wasn't that big of a deal.
It's almost like a bonus vacation on the vacation, right? You get to do something a little special on the side. It's funny, we were getting ready for the show. I actually went online and pulled off some distances for people from the airport to their downtown center, because I thought, we sometimes think, oh, I have to leave, that's going to take too long and I'm going to miss a flight. Well, if you land in Boston at Logan, it's only 5.8 kilometers from downtown. Las Vegas, McCarran International, it's only 6.5 kilometers from downtown. Miami, it's 8. St. John's, it's 11 kilometers. Vancouver, it's 12, and San Francisco is the one of the longest distances is 21. So I mean, really, you can Uber it, you can taxi
even
it.
21 kilometers is not that bad.
It's like 25 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, you can go and actually experience an excursion, depending on how you're traveling. I mean, if you were traveling from a cruise ship, usually on the departure day, you can actually add in. I remember landing in port at in Jersey, and I got on to get to the rather than paying a cab to get to the airport. I actually took an excursion, and I got to tour all of down to like New York, Manhattan, all of the key spots that tourists want to go to, 9/11 Memorial, like everything. I had it all done within a 2-hour span, and I got dropped off at the airport. My luggage was underneath the bus. We got to go for lunch downtown at one of the spots, famous for their, their fare. And it was very cool. So, I mean,
I didn't know you could do that. That'd be actually a cool idea to look. How would you find out about excursions and stuff at the airport?
At the airport, well, you would actually just talk to your travel agent, or you can Google it, destinations, activities to do in a certain city. And
But I'm just surprised they pick you up at the airport. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they drop you off. They drop you off at the airport because it depends if you're off of a cruise.
Oh, okay. So
it's the day they usually get up and they say, don't forget, you can book your last thing to get to the airport either by private transfer, which costs the same amount.
Oh, okay.
A cab, which will cost probably more, or you can actually, maybe $25 more. You can actually get a full view of New York and blah blah blah.
Oh,
they would probably do that, and you could probably go see. What's it called? Kennedy Space Center, if you were doing that port.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things that are close to ports, not only ports, but airports as well, that you can actually add on as an extension to your vacation.
Yeah, that's cool. That might be better then, because I wasn't too impressed the last time when we were down waiting for a flight for LAX, because we had to check out. We had a very late flight. Weather was miserable. It was really not miserable. It was just windy. We have already spent all our time. It was a little bit off season, so we already spent all our time at the beach doing all the regular, Santa Monica beachside things. Yeah. So we went to the movies.
Oh, what a wonderful thing, though.
Right? We would just say, okay, well, let's look up where the closest theater is. And it's kind of cool going to a movie theater in a different city because everyone's got their own chains and ways of doing things. And so we managed to find one of those ones that has actual waiters that come and take your orders.
That's so cool.
I can't remember to this day what movie we went to go and see, but it was. But you know what? It was 2 hours. It just flew by. So by the time we managed to find a taxi after that and then get ourselves back to the airport, we called ahead to where our luggage storage was. They went and met us at the departures to drop off our bags that we had paid for storage for the afternoon. It was perfect.
Wonderful.
But speaking of luggage storage, not all airports have it, which is very frustrating. So a lot of things, there are certain airports that always have on-site luggage storage. And I think that's, it's been really handy, especially for those long times where even if it's just a carry-on, you don't want to be dragging it around with you for the day. And the prices are usually very reasonable. But it was surprising how LAX doesn't have it anymore. And it has to do with 9/11 still. They're using it as security concern. So there is an off-site company near LAX that does it. But it's surprising that an airport of that size doesn't have it. A lot of international locations have it. We've used it at a couple places, which is great. So usually it's at it's not necessarily at a departures.
No, it's
not at arrival. It's usually at departures where you had to get there early and drop off your luggage or something like that. But we've had no problem storing our luggage, and sometimes we paid $5 a piece, $10 a piece. It all depends on how long you're holding it for. And it's so worth it not to have to drag it around.
And you have to definitely ask where it is. In even some of the airports that I've been in, I've used it. You have to ask for it because it's in the most weird location. It's like a hole in the wall. It is a hole in the wall.
Yes, it's
looks like a coat check. It looks like a coat check.
It is
from those days.
So they give you, it's just like a regular coat check where they put a tag on your bag and give you the other part of the tag, and you carry it with you. Usually you have to prepay for it or whatever. Some places, I think one place will let us pay afterwards. But it's just a matter of showing up there and getting to manage to pick up your bags just before your flight. I love that tip that Stacy shared about taking a free city tour. I never actually realized, or I guess I just never crossed my mind, that any port city anywhere in the world would be catering to cruise customers. So think like Barcelona and Rome and anything that's on the water's edge will have day trips ready to go for people who are visiting in the area. And they probably all have specific either pickup or drop off times for airports as well. So it's something to look into. I'm not sure specifically on what tour companies are doing in what cities, but I know that I will look into them for those times when I know I'm going to be having a bit of a layover. And any information, of course, I'll always share. So I talked about eating, so going to restaurants that are not necessarily on site, looking for other things. Yeah. Maybe there was, I happen to have one of those checklists that if I'm going to a particular country or city, I have things that I must eat while I am there.
Wonderful.
And if I have not had a chance to have something or I'm missing out on something, I will even ask a local at the airport who's working at one of the other kiosks or something, like, I didn't get to have this. I've got a few hours to kill. I can take a taxi. Where do I go?
Excellent.
Right?
Excellent.
And then you can go and have that Chicago pizza or whatever else. Because you were silly enough to spend time in Chicago and not have the pizza. But you can at least try it. It's a fork and knife thing. Like it's a
hearty.
It's a hearty
meal.
It's basically your calorie count for the day.
For the week.
It's crazy. And then after you eat, of course, you need to work that off. So one of the other things I think is kind of cool, I haven't used it myself yet. Aside from, I like just to go for walks. That's just me. But there's a lot of people who are insistent on getting their workout in every day. And it's surprising how more and more airports are now including some kind of fitness facility, even if it's just a few bikes, treadmills, whatever in a room. The fact that you can throw on some comfy shoes or sneakers, and sometimes they'll even rent them. I don't know if I'd rent them. It's like renting bowling shoes.
I was just going to say that.
You gotta get over it. If you're okay renting bowling shoes,
you're okay with renting.
Again,
others.
It's going back to our previous episode. We were talking about that. Please always have socks with you.
Always have socks with you in your carry-on.
I don't care if it's hot and you're wearing flip-flops. Always have socks.
Oh, you'll understand if you don't know now.
Even if they're little cute ankle socks, always have socks. And you can even get the socks now that are basically, what do they call those?
I just call them socklets.
Yeah, like they just cover your foot so you don't actually show outside your shoe, right? Don't wear them as sandals, please. I don't want any flip-flops, and socks are never cool.
Birkenstocks.
Oh my God. So make sure you have, charging cords are a big deal. So don't, if you are concerned that you're going to some place that may or may not have those power facilities that we mentioned at the beginning of the show, I would suggest that you have those little, I want to call Mophie's the brand, but those little portable power adapters.
Absolutely.
And have one, if not two. And this is going to be the aunt and me with the kids. Every kid gets their own power thing. I would insist that the kids learn to have them pre-charged before they go. And they are in charge of managing it. It is only to be used when they are down to next to nothing. And then after they are charged up, once you find an outlet, your kid's goal is to recharge that for the next one. So I had to do that. Unfortunately, when Alex was younger, they didn't have those kind of little portable charger things back then, but they're a godsend, and they're so cheap now. You can find them at just about any department store. Every dollar store carries them. Have a few of them on hand. Tuck them in zippered sections in your purse, your handbags and backpacks, and carry-ons in your suitcase. Maybe charge up a bunch before you leave, and this way you have no excuse, and this way you don't have to be unplugging the ladies' vacuum while you're trying to charge yourself.
It's so funny. And you brought that up, and it makes me think about always making sure before you leave that the destination that you're at, their electricity capabilities, have the converter and the adapter and all the little pieces that go with it.
Yes.
And keep them in a safe place, and like myself, have not 7 different sets of them after not losing them, because you're putting them in a special, safe place.
I have a Meloid collection too. I think I have the Air Canada ones. Yeah. I have another set of black. One of my favorite ones is this all-in-one unit.
Yes.
Right? That you basically switch to,
and it throws out whatever thing it needs for that city. that place.
Yes, you only have one thing that you have to stress about.
And then if you need the converter, you just switch it. It's so cool.
Yes, it's been, it was really handy, and having a couple of them, because we also got to research ahead of time about not just which adapter you need, but sometimes it has to do with the type of power and how much power is actually going to be there when you get there.
Yes.
So there might be certain things that you're packing to bring with you on your
that
trip
you'll never be able to use.
that you'll never be able to use.
Or that you might fry.
Yeah,
Just never know.
I tend to short out hair dryers, hair dryers, and I think I shorted out a curling iron once. Yeah, usually it involves my hair. So the hair tools I tried to go. I wish my hair was naturally curly like Stacey's, but just damn luck.
I wish mine was straight.
Then the last thing I always like to do, so before or after your trip. So take advantage of this quiet time that you have at the airport if it's quiet. First of all, I love just sitting at an airport bar. I will have my MacBook or my iPad, and that's the time where I will treat myself to either a glass of wine or something like that, and I'll do some writing. I'm either going to do some work, writing a blog or whatever else. If I don't have Wi-Fi, I'm still typing it on whatever. I can journal certain things, especially if it's after my trip. If I want to make notes about what I liked, what I didn't like, special experiences that I had, thoughts I need to get down on paper, that's the time to do that. And then, of course, if you are really big on your social media updates and you want to create that Facebook album after your trip, this is like the perfect time to do that, to sort through all your pictures, upload whenever you need to upload,
Absolutely.
Make notes on things like that. You can double check on all your any flights changes that are coming up, maybe because you have more than one flight on its way. If you're on your way to your destination, now's the time to check out any particular excursions, any restaurant reservations you want to make. Read out some reviews of things to
make
see.
Make sure you're checked in.
Oh yes,
pre-check in the 24 hours. And the only reason I suggest this for people is that sometimes now, depending on the airline, especially in the US, if you don't check in the 24 hours, you're not guaranteed a seat. So always check, because you see the people in line that don't end up with the seat and they're like, well, you didn't check in. Just, it's available to you. It's on email now. Take it serious.
I never understood that, because we always will check in early. First of all, I get to double check on this, because there's been sometimes if they change the plane.
It changes your seat location. I've lost club class and first class, and I ended up in the back of the bus. And I'm like, well, no, then there has to be you have to give me a refund, because I'm sorry. But no, it's up to us as travelers.
Then you have to go and contact then you have to contact them to obtain a refund. And yes, I know it's a big rigmarole. But we there's a couple of little links about that. There's some website that will, if there's a delay longer than a certain period of time. Do you have heard about it? They will fight on your behalf to get you some kind of a rebate or some kind of so much money per hour from certain airlines. They fight on your behalf. Yes. I am going to look for that website for you, because I was talking to a friend of mine who was traveling overseas, and they were delayed. I don't know if it's by a day or so. She got a check in the mail for $700. And it was just because her flight was delayed longer than a certain period of time. And this one company or website actually fought for them on their behalf because the delay was much longer than expected.
There was a couple of things that happened the last time I arrived back into Toronto on similar aspects of that, but other people, I noticed other people talking about it, not with my flight. There was an ice storm not so long ago, just last month, when we weren't expecting it. And one of the flights that were supposed to get out to go to Jamaica ended up being 2.5 days later getting in. And another flight coming in from Cuba, and I believe it might have been Sunwing. And I know people out there know, because it's too, short for, what do they call it? 7 degrees of separation or whatever. The whole airline provider didn't load any of the luggage for anyone on that plane coming out of Cuba. So people totally lost all their luggage, and they had to wait for it and had to be refunded. So those are the things, again, that website's great, but if you've booked with an agent, make sure you follow up with them, because you know what? There is compensation available. Don't just accept the voucher at the front. There is so much more. That voucher will not get you anywhere in the airport at all. You might get a bag of peanuts for $25. really go back and say, listen, this is a half day or a full day of my vacation. I paid X amount of dollars. It should be prorated and handed back to you. Very plain and simple. And it can be fought for, and you should all be getting it if any kind of delay.
I'm assuming that has to do with some kind of general traveler's rights.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's part of what TICO, the actual certification for people, they fight for their clients.
So just for general information, you can get some links for us to
Absolutely.
put on the show notes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course you can.
Of course I can, as I Google furiously.
So a little bit more about settling in at the airport bar, which as you heard, I spend a lot of time at, usually because I like the work surface. I don't have to take up a table, especially if I'm traveling alone. It allows me to kind of chit chat with bartenders are usually there where you don't have to chase around staff when you need them. You can just actually eat right at the bar at most places. So especially if you're traveling alone, just like on our solo travel and dining episode, we were talking about saddling up to a bar, even if it's at a restaurant. If you're dining alone, it's just a little bit more accommodating. You don't stick out like a sore thumb sitting in the middle of the restaurant, put it that way. So by sitting at an airport bar, a couple things you have to remember. I mean, you can't just sit there at the bar and take up a bar seat without drinking, which is not a big deal in my point. However, a couple little points. Just keep in mind that these drinks are expensive. There's little tips out there about ordering doubles instead of just ordering multiple drinks. However, yes, you're getting more for your money, but it's one of those things that you have to keep in mind that consuming alcohol, especially on a flight, does dehydrate you quicker and means it will hit you a lot faster than if you did just having one drink at a time. And so I would advise on ordering anything straight up. This is the time when you're going to need mixed, or at least make sure you have water in between each drink. So the other cool thing is that the airport bar, because most airports, especially those that are considered international airports, they're operating with people coming and going in different time zones. So it's very rare that you'll find an entire airport, especially a global one, that doesn't have a bar that's open, regardless of what time you're coming from. So there's no excuse to always sort of sneak in a mimosa or a little glass of wine. I've gone to many places, and with breakfast, it's very classy to have a glass of champagne. So yes, that's the kind of breakfast I like too. A couple of things, because you're going to be waiting for that flight to come in, make sure you ask for your bill as soon as you order. Try settling things in. If you know you're going to have more than one, let them know and ask them to punch into. The only thing is that especially if the bartender is working by themselves, you don't want to have that announcement that all of a sudden you have to race to your gate or leave the bar for whatever reason, and then you're trying to chase down the bartender or someone to take care of your tab. So this way you always can just take off whenever you're ready. Don't forget to tip your bartender like you normally would at any other bar that you go to. Make sure you pay for your drinks using a credit or debit card, because this also will help the bartender find you if you ever leave something behind, because that happens, especially again when you're drinking at a bar. And then if you are particularly going to be there for a long layover, this might be something that you to look at for one of those airline lounge passes that we talked about in the show. A pass can cost around $50 US. Different airlines will charge different prices depending on what they're offering that in their lounge. But sometimes that can actually equal that $50 cost is about 5-6 beer or, a couple of good scotches. But because there's going to be snacks and there's Wi-Fi and everything too, it might be more economical if you have a long time to hang out, that you can actually go and spend and snack and sip most of the afternoon away in one of the airline lounges. So just go up to usually they're upstairs from the main level of where the departures lounge are. And then you can just go in, stand at the main desk, and you can just inquire about purchasing a day pass. I've rarely run into one that won't sell you one. However, just keep in mind that a lot of times they have to have a capacity of in there. If you go at peak times of the day, certain ones will save room specifically for their best flight customers and their frequent flyers and everything else to make sure that they always have space for them first. But it never hurts to ask. Before I forget, Remember that website that we were trying to rack our brains for? It's called airhelp.com. So this is a place where you can kind of fight for money back for flight delays. So there's usually like minimum requirements. But the cool thing is that I've actually talked to somebody who's actually got back a $700 check from this company. And I know that Stacy also has a couple of links for you that for some TICO directly related Canadian sites. But either way, there are places out there that will actually give you money back on your flights if you have experienced any delays. And I believe this airhelp.com will even go back up to 2 years. So as long as you have the details of your flight and can prove that you were on it, you might be getting back a lot of money. So in closing, thanks for listening. I know that you're busy out gardening, enjoying this beautiful weather that we're finally having, and I appreciate the time that you spend with us every week. So make sure you share your airport hangout tips with us on our Facebook page. We'd love to hear from you. If you prefer to contact us via email, you can do so at flavor@stephaniepichet.ca. And don't forget, subscribe and rate us on all of the podcast players. We're pretty much everywhere now. And if you want to just find us online, you can always do so at flyingforflavor.ca. So open up that shock top and have a great week. Cheers.